Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Gallagher and I'm Director of the Dementias Platform UK. And this afternoon we're going to be doing a webinar on opportunities for commercial partners to work with us in defeating dementia. Our agenda is very straightforward. We will be welcoming you, which is what I'm doing now, and I'll give you some background to the platform. We will then look into the role of commercial partners in DPUK and the opportunities for commercial partners provided by DPUK. And then we look forward to receiving some questions from you that we can address so that we can address all of the issues or many of the issues that interest you and would be valuable to your business. Now, the Dementias Platform UK has been set up to, if you like, provide an environment for a new generation of highly targeted, highly informative trials. If we look at the graph, we'll see that many current studies are conducted, if you like, in the dementia phase, the MCI dementia phase, and that's illustrated by the green slope on the graph. Of course, we're all very much aware that dementia starts 15, 20 years before that. So what we'd like to do is to create an environment, to create a de-risked environment in which we can study dementia at very, very early stages. And we illustrate that at the red slope on that graph. Now, the challenge here, of course, is that the slope is much shallower and therefore to detect change is more difficult, resulting in, conventionally speaking, much larger trials, which are highly risky and very, very expensive. Which is why the Dementias Platform is looking to look at much more closely defined trials, and that requires much better characterized participants for the trials. So in order to do this, we have an infrastructure which involves bringing cohorts from the UK together so that we can rapidly analyze data, we can invest in particular cohorts for particular purposes, and we can, if you like, provide a pipeline going through to experimental medicine projects, both academic and commercial. Now, the beauty of these cohorts is that it allows us to have a very, if you like, increasingly fine-grained characterization of individuals. So we have roughly 2 million individuals with follow-up data that we have access to through our data portal. And then within that, we have 500 individuals from the UK Biobank study, which in addition have full GWAS data on 820,000 SNPs plus imputations. And it is an enormous amount of genetic detail for such a large number of individuals. Currently, through UK Biobank, 100,000 of those individuals are being brain scanned, and that is a 3 Tesla MRI structural scan, along with many other imaging modalities to give, if you like, an exceptionally, in fact, a uniquely broad picture of body structure, and hopefully in the future how that will change. DPUK is funded at roughly 2 years, although it may be 3, at roughly 2 years, to do a repeat brain scan so that we can identify change in individuals. And we are funded to achieve that in 10,000 people. So this is a remarkable, an absolutely remarkable resource, which we are hoping that you, along with our academic friends, will be able to exploit. In order to exploit it, we have an infrastructure, and that includes a 7-site PET-MR network, and I think this is the first PET-MR network in the world, and we're looking to harmonize operations, standard procedures, best practice, etc., so that we can truly do multi-center studies on these highly characterized participants throughout the UK. We also have a high throughput stem cell facility, and we have a multimodality informatics processing facility, including genetics and imaging. So it really is a remarkable resource, and it can be summarized in terms of core enabling utilities. And quite simply, that is rapid data access through our data portal to be looking at how different people change at different rates in terms of their cognitive decline leading to dementia. It is the identification of highly characterized participants from these cohorts for early phase trials in contrast to late phase trials. And it's technology development so that we can, if you like, have an infrastructure that is actually of use to you in developing your own interests. So that's basically an introduction to the platform. And now I'd like to hand over to Dr. Declan Jones to talk about opportunities for industry.
Thank you, John. So I'm Declan Jones. I work for Hanson Pharmaceuticals, based at the Johnson & Johnson Innovation Centre in central London. I've been involved in the Dementias Platform UK since the early days, the inception, and some of the early discussions before the DPUK was established. As you can see from the slide here, there are actually a number of commercial and academic partners which are part of the DPUK. I work a lot with the commercial partners, and I've been asked to just say a few words about who the commercial partners are, how we get involved in the DPUK, what we contribute and what we get back. And you can see there's a number of different partners, from the pharma partners such as Hanson, GlaxoSmithKline and AstraZeneca or MedImmune, and a number of small and medium enterprise companies such as SomaLogics, Ixico and Araclon. Now we meet monthly as a group. We have a company partners forum which meets monthly, and we discuss all aspects of the DPUK. We have influence at all levels of the DPUK, from our active contributions from different work packages to our role on the executive team, and also our role upon the Medical Research Council's Oversight Board. So we're full partners in the DPUK. What do we contribute? Well, we can contribute cash and or in kind. I think the most important thing we contribute is actually scientific expertise in our own areas of expertise. This could be for anything from Janssen's expertise and actually ability to show the need or point the need for early discovery and early development challenges in Alzheimer's disease drug discovery. What do we get? Well, we get a key role within what is, I think, a world-leading exercise in dementias research. We get access to helping to really drive and lead the strategy of the DPUK. And we get access, we hope, as the DPUK infrastructure builds, as it has done over the last 2 or 3 years, we'll get access to solving some of the challenges in early discovery, early development and clinical research in dementias research. So for us, I think it's been a tremendous experience so far. I think we're full partners in this. I think one of the real exciting pieces is to see the interactions between the academics and the commercial partners, but also, as John mentioned, between the academics on the networks which have been established and the building of the infrastructure, both in imaging, stem cells and informatics. So I'll be happy to address any questions later in the webinar.
So it's my job now to try and paint a picture of what we're looking for in terms of CRO partnerships within DPUK. So what we are looking for is CROs who would wish to work with us very much as a collaboration to develop a strategic commercial partnership model, a way that we can address the return on investment agenda, both for DPUK with the government money and the industry money that's gone into it, but also a return on investment, of course, for the CRO that partners with us. We're also very keen to enhance the impact that DPUK investment has on the pharmaceutical companies developing novel treatments for the diseases that cause dementia. And we also want to enhance the sustainability agenda. So we want to ensure that what we started in DPUK can continue beyond the 5 years, and again, with new models of partnership. As I think you would have picked up already from what Declan Jones said, this is at its heart a collaboration between academia and industry. And we want to extend that now as we look beyond the initial 5-year term and look at ways of really getting value for actually ultimately patients out of the platform by having the right partners. So I wanted to just drill down into what it might and might not be that this partnership is like. So as has already been presented by John, there's a number of really key enabling utilities, like the building blocks of a commercial partnership. There's the possibility of rapid data access for example, disease modelling. There is the opportunity for quite innovative clinical trial designs with very well characterised participants who might join experimental medicine or small scale trials, these subjects coming out of the cohorts. There is also, I think, a really exciting opportunity to leverage the technology infrastructure, networks that have been put in place with capital equipment grants from the government and all the expertise of the collaborations within DPUK, and perhaps especially the imaging one, which I think is really uniquely able to look at how we could impact sort of a new way of doing small-scale, innovative clinical trial designs. There's also the expertise, the network of investigators, which is already working collaboratively in really new ways. We brought together different fields. We're looking not just at the traditional amyloid and tau models of the disease. We're looking much more broadly at mechanisms of action and novel designs and novel biomarkers. And that gives, I think, an opportunity for commercial partners to really access that kind of expertise, which is, I think, really highly innovative and once again very much already embedded in a structure which is at its heart a collaboration between academia and industry. I think it's perhaps also worth saying what we're not offering. We haven't got a large bank of pre-screened subjects ready to enrol in late phase clinical trials, and that also isn't really the main aim of the platform. The aim of the platform is really to drive innovation, new ways of doing things. Yes, we know it's a challenge and one that you are tackling in the CRO world of trying to find patients for these large late-scale trials, but that isn't what the platform is able to bring. The second thing we haven't yet got is a market-ready infrastructure. We've got a fantastic infrastructure, but the reason we want to talk to partners now rather than at the very end of the platform's first 5 years is because we want somebody who wants to collaborate with us in identifying models of commercial collaboration which actually meet the needs ultimately of the pharma industry who we think will want to access it. And so it's not for the platform on its own to determine that. We very much want partners to help us do that. So we haven't yet got market-ready infrastructure. We want partners to help us develop that.
I just want to follow what Derek, who is amongst this group, our representative from the small company world from IXICO, what he's just said. To go back and summarize what we've heard today, first of all, I want to emphasize that DPUK is, first of all, an informatics structure. It pulls together the data from more than 30 cohorts, or large groups of subjects who are longitudinally, prospectively studied across the UK, each of which has different characteristics, but all of which are relevant to the problem of dementia. To pull that information together and to make it accessible to people on the outside, to link that to the kinds of infrastructure needed to develop experimental medicine, phase 2A studies, using those cohorts, infrastructure that, as Derek emphasized, includes a remarkable range of MRI PET centers, linked to a set of ultra-high field centers, linked to a set of MEG centers, and all of these are embedded in an NIHR, National Institutes of Health Research, clinical research environment that enables trials to be conducted in collaboration with academia. Third thing it is, so I've talked about cohorts and informatics, I've talked about imaging and infrastructure. The third thing it is that, as Derek has emphasized, it's about partnership, it's about collaboration. This provides an easy way of interacting with the very best people in academia in the UK who are interested in the dementia space and who carry a huge range of skills moving forward. Finally, it's about innovation. It's about innovation in the science, innovation in the trials and their design, but also, again, I want to emphasize what Derek said, it's about innovation in ways of working. There is no way of working with between small companies and DPUK that is ruled out from the beginning. It is an open discussion that we want to see evolve to deliver greater value moving forward for UK industry and a more sustainable infrastructure to fuel both industry and academic investigations in this critically important disease area. So I hope that you'll find something of interest here. Everyone is here to be contacted, and this is now a good time for you to send questions in through the webinar. Let me turn it back now, really, to John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Derek, and thank you, Declan. And thank you for joining us. I hope that we've provoked interest. I hope we've stimulated some questions, and we look forward to addressing some of those now. Thank you very much.
Some questions coming through, John.
Yep. So one question we have here is, who should a CRO talk to learn more? Well, let me hand that on to Declan.
So we'd be very happy. I mean, as I mentioned in the company partner forum, we have a number of big pharma and SME companies. So there's different perspectives on what the DPUK can offer and how it's working out for each company. So I think we'd be very, very happy to talk to companies, and we can start the conversation about what the DPUK can offer to a clinical research organisation, but also what we'd be looking for from that organisation to really enable the platform. So I think the company partner forum is probably the good place to start, John.
Yes, yes. And one of the things I've been really pleasantly engaged with in terms of the company partner forum is the collaborative nature of it, and the interaction between industry, which brings slightly more urgency and cutting edge to the conversation, and academics who bring slightly more conservativeness and precision to the evidence. It's been extremely stimulating and very enjoyable. Now we come to a second question now, which is, what will a CRO need to contribute to join to the platform? Well, I can't think of anybody better than Derek of Ixico to answer that. So Derek.
So I think as Paul alluded to, there's all sorts of models that people can participate in DPUK. It is possible to formally become a partner, which means signing up to the agreement and making an in-kind and/or cash contribution, and that depends on the size of the company. But I think for these commercial exploratory discussions, we're also open to a different sort of model, looking for having an informal discussion initially under CDA about how we can work with you to explore possible commercial models of partnership. So that would be a different model to what we've got already, and we would welcome suggestions. But I think that would be an initial chat. Let's have a discussion. What might be the opportunity to explore together commercial opportunities, and what might then be the plan for how we qualify, validate those, and move forward to what might look like a sort of framework for an ongoing commercial arrangement. So that will be a kind of definitely a collaborative approach to developing the business model for sustainability.
Derek, can I ask, thinking about this, if there's, for small companies, there is both UK and still some European catalyst funding to start new areas, is this a discussion that can be brought to DPUK in the earliest stages when people are trying to pull together an industry-based application to help DPUK boost their ability to leverage these sorts of...
No, I think that's true. So I think, as you say, there's a whole variety of types of companies that might want to be involved in different ways. I think that if you look at the smaller companies that might be eligible for grant funding, whether it's UK government or whether it's other sources of funding within the UK or whether it's European funding, etc., there's certainly opportunities to have a discussion about how the collaboration with DPUK might drive innovation, which would have a commercial impact. I think for larger companies that are looking for their own strategies for growth into new areas, new capabilities, new ways of working with pharma companies, maybe moving into new types of biomarker sensors or models. I think there's also an opportunity to look at collaborative frameworks that support that. So de-risk, if you like, a commercial strategy to move into new areas and build business in new ways. So those are two examples, perhaps, to respond to your question.
Okay, Declan, you mentioned about engaging in a collaboration and through the company partner forum. That is quite close to our third question. How will a CRO interact with existing partners?
Okay, so I think the existing partners at the moment, I described how they interact currently, and of course that's one model where they join the platform, they join the club. We have discussions. The existing partners have a company partner forum where we have a lot of, if you like, company discussions, but they're integral members of the platform, so they're members of work packages and steering group and so on. Now how a new partner might come in and want to join exactly under those circumstances. But I think Derek mentioned that there are different models, and I think we're very open to exploring how those models might work. And it could be that the existing model might suit a partner and be able to join the DPUK in that way, or we're very open to saying, well, are there other ways? I think that the most important thing is what expertise, what enthusiasm, what expertise can that partner bring? I think for us, as an existing partner member, that's probably the key. Looking to see, well, what can you add to the partnership, as well as understanding what potential you can leverage from this from the platform.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good point. One of the interesting things about communicating DPUK is that because we like to think laterally, because we're here to provide opportunities, some people find it difficult to understand precisely what we are. Well, if we wish to be precise, we are an enabling community. We are an enabling platform, and therefore we generally invite discussion on, could we do it this way or could we do it that way? And historically, we've always had very fruitful discussions when we've had this open conversation to just try and seek a way forward which has mutual benefit. So I really do encourage you to be thinking creatively about how you might engage with us.
I mean, John, one point I just might add to that is there's an enormous range of resources associated with these different cohorts, which were by and large set up as epidemiological studies, not just data, but also many of them have biobank resources associated with them. The largest being the 500,000 in the UK biobank, which has an enormous range of samples. There is value that can be added to these samples and to these cohorts and databases by performing assays and other sorts of analyses, in the case of imaging, that can help move data or biomarker or biological resources closer towards information. That has obvious commercial value, the ability to, for example, associate whatever one's proprietary measure is with clinical outcomes in the short or longer term, for example. And those are things that each cohort will treat somewhat differently, but DPUK is set up very well to provide a source of initial contact to broker relationships, or to establish a conduit to interact with the many academic partners associated with each of the more than 30 cohorts that are involved.
Yes, and I think as the model becomes more established and is demonstrated to deliver, my expectation is that we will accrue further cohorts, a more diverse set of data. Again, there is further opportunity to exploit and develop that to mutual advantage, commercial and academic. Now, Derek, you mentioned what is available now and what isn't. Could you explain that a bit further, please?
Yes, I think it's true to say that the platform is very much building infrastructure at its heart, as well as enabling science through collaboration. And it's halfway through, more or less. So, as you can imagine, therefore, quite a lot of the building is work in progress. So, for example, the scanners have all been ordered. Many of them are now in place and coming up to speed, but the network is not yet running as a well-oiled machine. That's still ongoing in terms of some of the aspects of that. And that comes back to the point that is a reason to get involved now, to influence how it's finally set up, to make it of greater value to commercial partners. I think if you look at the data, I think it's also true to say that the data is now beginning to come in larger and larger tranches, and that will be ongoing. But it's also probably true that there's an extent to which some of the discussions about commercial partners and sustainability are also going to impact the enthusiasm with which some people put data in. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg in some of these discussions, and that's why we are looking for a genuine partnership, not just we're not going to send out an RFI for people to bid to be a commercial partner. We want people to come and collaborate with us to get that commercial offering there and to help drive the success of the platform more broadly. I think that the issue about the access to the cohorts, because of the nature of the cohorts, It isn't a large readiness cohort for late phase trials and never will be. That isn't its prime role. Access to the cohorts will be driven by scientific questions that can be answered with these cohorts that can't be answered in other ways, more than just, and I don't mean that to belittle it, but rather than saying we just need more people to hit our enrolment targets. So it's a more science-driven, innovation-driven than just enrolment target-driven approach that we might want in terms of recruiting people out of the cohorts. And once again, the way in which that works and the type of experimental medicine or small clinical trial design that we can enable, that's something which you're also keen to have broader discussions with. We've got some partners which have strong views on that, but there's other people who may want different approaches.
Okay, so Declan, Derek mentioned the value of joining early to help shape the platform. Do you feel that the commercial partners have been in a position to shape the activity of the platform?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I mean, and that's been the attraction. I think that's been very fruitful, and I think that's certainly delivered what was promised to us. And I think what's been really good is that each of the partners has different needs and has been able to shape individual projects. And for example, Hanson is very, very interested in synaptic health and synaptic plasticity, and we've taken the co-lead on that to really drive the synaptic health experimental medicine theme. Others, for example, GSK worked with academic partners to drive the vascular risk factors and so on. And so for us, it's delivered exactly what was promised, helped to shape the platform and to really try and move things along to meet the needs of each of the individual partners.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the tricky issues, of course, is IP, and it's absolutely fascinating questions. Paul, I wonder whether you'd like just to give a reflection on the IP situation.
Well, John, it's a hard question to cover in a general sense, but again, I want to go back to the structure of the cohorts and DPUK's relationship to them. So DPUK is an enabling group. DPUK itself has no interest and no claim on IP. And the individual cohorts themselves are set up by different kinds of organizations and with different expectations. For example, many of the cohorts are set up within university infrastructures within the UK, and therefore will be governed by the IP rules, the IP practices of those universities, which have become increasingly standardized over the years, but still carry university by university idiosyncrasies. In general, emerging IP belongs to the inventor group and will be managed through commercialization partners that each university has identified with licenses given out to those collaborating or partnering industries. On the other hand, there are another type of cohort within DPUK. The UK Biobank has a completely different set of rules, and those are actually extraordinary. And I want to spend a moment on them because they're actually so hard for people outside to appreciate, simply because they're so simple. UK Biobank, which has contributes the largest cohort of 500,000 people who are prospectively followed from middle age to death, does not claim any IP on the data that it holds or when it gives access to its biological samples for assays on the IP emerging from that. It is there strictly to facilitate access to these data. It's an extraordinarily rich source as well because it includes not just data that's collected in a prospective manner as part of a controlled study, but it also includes access to the HSCIC and the primary health records on the subjects who continue to be followed. So the rules for each of the cohorts is different. Now where DPUK adds value is that it helps partners understand first who is responsible for each cohort, provides organized ways of contacting those persons, and increasingly will provide guidelines to how others, based on how others have interacted with those cohorts, although that part of the enterprise is still a work in progress. Fundamentally, DPUK and the cohorts are answerable to our funding masters within the UK for allowing people to make better use of their resources and finding more efficient approaches to enabling sharing of the resource and to development of rational patterns of IP ownership are part of this. So I think it's a complicated question. I really should probably turn to both Derek and Declan for industry and SME comments.
I mean, I will just make a very brief comment that we were heavily involved, as were the companies, in the original consortium agreement, which obviously covered IP, and I don't remember that being a sticking point. I think it was something that was a way of working which I think we've all become used to. So I would just make that comment. I certainly can't talk from a background of expertise, but Derek, maybe you could mention.
Yes, I think that within the consortium agreement there's a lot of protection for everybody in terms of their ability to undertake R&D with the data within the platform. And there's also some clarity about how you would go about direct exploitation of the arising IP in the platform. So it is, as Declan said, from the sort of collaboration framework between academia and industry in the kind of general life sciences area, it looks quite familiar and it's a lot simpler than some. I think when looking at a CRO partnering with the platform, we'd have to look at what the commercial opportunity to be explored is. If, for example, it's access to the infrastructure, then there isn't really an IP issue. If it is access to the data, then depending on what's being done with the data, there will need to be a discussion about the IP and how that links into the various different stakeholders in the IP in these cohorts, many of which have been tracked for many decades. And of course, if there's a rising IP, somebody's invented something clever in the platform which an organisation wants to look at in licensing, then that will become very much like any other situation, an in-licensing discussion of the sort that many companies are familiar with the universities which have been involved in developing that IP. So I think there's a fairly familiar setting here, but there's certain areas of commercial partnership where we don't see there being any roadblocks at all to the sort of collaboration. And there's others where, of course, what we can do is hopefully streamline the IP discussions if they become critical to the value of the collaboration. I think one thing that I'm very aware of in Ixico is that the time it takes to reach agreement on IP and the clarity about likely terms can be a bit of a turn-off in some collaborations. And I think within DPUK, the strong industrial presence I think would at least give you the ability to understand that landscape from both the academic and the company point of view quite early on. And I think we would see that being streamlined in certain situations, and in other areas we will probably just warn you it's complicated, and at least you get that information early on.
Yes. So thank you. So let's just come on to our final question now, which is, are there restrictions on what cohorts can be used for? Well, I think it's worth remembering we have a very diverse range of cohorts. And whatever we do, what we don't wish to do is to compromise the primary scientific purpose of establishing those cohorts. So, for example, if you have a very small clinical cohort, it is just not a very good idea to, if you like, contact those people for a trial which will disrupt or disturb the primary purpose of the cohort. On the other hand, if you have a very, very large cohort, recruiting people, highly characterized individuals for a small trial will make relatively little difference, and that's presuming that the intervention works in the first place. So I think we have a whole range of issues, and we are looking for diverse and new models of how to exploit this, but it's a conversation to be had because we think that the current models are actually rather blunt instruments, and we think there's a lot of opportunity for niching different value propositions and different interests to different stakeholders, and we'd like to pursue that. There are a few red lines, however, and I think one of them is that we are not talking about giving direct access to cohort participants. because again, I think the cohort research teams need to be confident that they are able to, if you like, defend that primary scientific purpose of the cohort. And also, we do jealously guard and protect individual identities. So there will always be a consent process and a discussion process which will go on with the cohort research teams in order to identify an appropriate way to recontact if that is something that is agreed ought to occur. But apart from, if you like, defending those identities, apart from defending the primary scientific purpose of each of those cohorts, we would look forward to a very rich discussion with you about how this evidence base and how this rich resource might be used for maximising public benefit. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. We certainly have in presenting it to you. And we look forward very much to receiving your thoughts and your interests in perhaps joining us in partnering. Thank you.